How did this come about that you were going to feature Russell Wilson on the cover?
Well, we decided a few months ago that we were going to do three big NFL figures, and obviously Russell's his backstory and his off season and with the interception. I mean, he seemed like a no-brainer. So, we approached his people, and he was interested, and we kind of went from there.
What kind of feedback do you get, Stephen, when you have something like this that's not in the music field or norm of what Rolling Stone is or always was?
Well, it's funny you mention that. If you read some of the comments, 20% of them are, "What the hell? This is a music magazine. Why are you doing a Russell Wilson story?" But other people, I think sports is now such a big part of popular culture that and Rolling Stone has always been a popular culture magazine that it's not that much of a reach, and particularly in this day with the internet and everything. Once you put the story out there, it kind of explodes or doesn't explode, and where it first appeared almost becomes immaterial. I bet 80% of the people who are talking about Russell Wilson and water probably couldn't tell you where the story started.
How many conversations did you have with him?
A number. I hung out with him for 3 or 4 days. He was running a camp at USC, one of his passing camps, and then 2 or 3 days while he was rehearsing and getting ready for the Nickelodeon Kid Choice Sports Awards. And then I went up to Seattle to have kind of a final conversation with him just as training camp was starting.
Did you feel it's weird when you talk to Russell? There's certain athletes where you're not quite sure you're getting what is really there. Did you have any of those moments with him, or did you feel like you did get him to open up?
I think I got him to open up a bit, but I do think that he's a very smart person, and as his brother says in the story, you could tell him the sky is blue, but if he thinks it's gray, he's going to tell you it's gray. And he has a specific kind of worldview, whether it's about the Super Bowl or his height or the products he's pushing, and you're really not going to move him off his mark. And I don't think it's artificiality as much as he's just the guy who believes what he believes. And I think that kind of mindset is partially what allows him as a 5'10", 5'11" guy to become a Super Bowl quarterback.
How did fans react to him when you were around him?
Oh, I mean, it was just nuts. I mean, I saw 2 of his camps, and one of them was in L.A. where the kids were a little more, let's say, confrontational. And one of them came up to him and was like, "Why didn't you give the ball to Marshawn Lynch? Beast mode!" And Russell kind of cringed, but he didn't. Then I saw him do a camp up in Tukwila, which is out by SeaTac in Seattle, and there was 1,200 kids, and there was 4,000 or 5,000 parents sitting in the bleachers, and he was like a rock star. There was somebody I don't know, he was scalping he was basically scalping like a pass to this training camp, and a kid who got to meet Russell was crying. So up there, I think he's the quintessential sports hero in Seattle history, with maybe only Griffey as a rival.
Russell Wilson talks about God's plan. Did you get into that with him, with whatever his life, his career, his fiance or girlfriend, Ciara?
Yeah, we did. We talked about that a bit, and one of the interesting things is, and I don't think it's really for people reading it, they have a reaction, and it's not whether or not people have faith or don't have faith. There's some people that the idea, one of the things Russell said was, within 6 steps of throwing that interception, God had told him it was part of his plan, and now I want people to see how you react to this. And that's either A, very nice, or B, a wonderful cop-out to have, and a kind of a cop-out that a lot of us would like to have in life, that if something doesn't work out, well, God told me it wasn't meant to work out. So,
but do you think it was a cop-out?
I think it's part of his worldview. I think for him to move forward, it's part of his worldview. I can't get inside his head and tell you whether God spoke to him or not.
Well, he has Derek Jeter as a role model, and which there's nothing wrong with that. But Derek was always a bad interview. He very controlled. Russell has a smile on his face. It seems like he's telling you a lot, and then sometimes he's not.
Right.
That's always the feeling that I've gotten from him. And look, I understand you want to protect yourself, and Derek Jeter did that as well as anybody in the world of social media. I just it always feels a little frustrating at times when you think you're close to getting something, and then all of a sudden he'll go into the team mode, or he's got as a plan for it, and like you're almost there, and he just can't quite give it to you.
I totally agree, and I think one of the advantages or whatever you want to call it that I had was not so much sitting down and talking with him, where you get a degree of that, but just kind of watching him interact with his friends and prepare for the show that he was doing and run these camps. And I think that gave me a better sense of him as a man and as an athlete than some of his answers, which can come off as canned.
Yeah.
There's no two ways around it. And again, there's a fine line, and I can't define it between canned and this is this guy's way he looks at the world, and this is how he's going to answer these questions. There's a moment in the story where he talks about how he doesn't think about that interception at all, but the receiver Lockett that didn't make the play either wrote in the Players Tribune about how he was having nightmares about it, and then he saw Russell at a kind of off-season thing, and Russell admitted that he had kind of second thoughts and nightmares about it, and that's something he would never tell a reporter. It's just not. Again, whether it's protecting his image or it's just not in his DNA. I did a story a couple of years ago on Brett Favre right after he threw that interception against the Saints, and he would go on and on about, man, I shouldn't have thrown that ball, and I'm going to be haunted about it for the rest of my life. And Russell Wilson's makeup is just not that way, and it has served him well. I mean, it's frustrating, I think, for people trying to get a peek inside of him, but it's worked for him.
The concussion story about the sports drink or the water, was he being serious that this type of water that he endorses actually helped his concussion or treated his concussion?
Well, he was very, very, he's a smart guy, and he was smart not usually to use the word concussion, but just to say head injury. But, yeah, there's no question that he believes it's true, that it helped. He wasn't joking. There was no, I'm pushing a product. I mean, he is, involved with the company, but he believes it. Like I said, I hate to repeat myself, but the things he believes strongly, and he believes strongly that guzzling that water helped him recover quicker.
Who's the athlete who's next to profile for you?
That's a really good question. There's a couple people out there. I did Ringo Starr earlier in the year, and that was kind of a highlight. So I just may take the rest of the year off.
Well, and Ringo was interesting because as you followed him around, you had to pick your spots with Ringo, but here's a Beatle who was very generous with his time, and I thought allowed you in. So I didn't know as much about Ringo before, and I certainly did after.
Well, that's the thing, is it just like, he did kind of allow me in, and it just, talking to his friends, he's like, you bring up the Beatles, he's going to roll his eyes. But then when he starts talking about the Beatles, you can't get him to shut up. So it is one of those things where you just kind of have to, it's like, feeling out another boxer in the first round or two is, let the fight kind of come to you. And once he started talking, some of the things he told me was just so fascinating, and I'm a huge Beatles fan, and there was a ton of stuff that I had never heard.
Did you profile Keith Olbermann?
I did.
Did we talk?
We did. Actually, we talked twice. Well, I was going to do a piece earlier, and I actually made the long, lonely drive up, and we met in Bristol. Then that piece got held for a couple years, and then I talked to you on the phone for a piece that I ended up doing for New York Magazine. So,
was I a good interview, Stephen?
You were. There was two things I remember about that.
Okay.
About that evening.
Because I was trying not to be a good interview, just to let you know.
A good interview you were, and it was the night also that Sex and the City debuted on HBO, and both of them were really important moments in my life.
Wow. So I was your Sarah Jessica Parker.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Hey, congrats. Take the rest of the year off, Stephen.
Okay, I will. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Stephen Rodrick of Rolling Stone.